Whenever I give a talk, honestly, I do not know exactly what I'm going to talk about. I do make it up as I go along, and I love it that way, because that makes the talk interesting to me as well. When you're talking about the subject of suicide, sometimes I must confess that on one occasion I was invited to the Chinese University in Shatin in Hong Kong because they had a lot of problems with student suicide. And I went there the first time. And the next year I went there again, and again, and again. Because it was working, what I was saying to them. New students, more little problems, and to see how we can solve them. There's many of those little Dhamma reflections which I have taught you, which I've written in books, and those books have been translated into many languages, which means that even students who are in difficulty or problems, they can look at those stories or have them explained to them and overcome the desire or the inclination to commit suicide. How can they do that? Because sometimes a person who is contemplating suicide is having a lot of pain, not so much physical pain, but the emotional pain. The emotional pain, and one of the core parts of that emotional pain is never thinking you're good enough to pass exams in the university, to find a partner in life, to have some decent meditation, to have some success in whatever sphere of life you've chosen to live. A lot of times that looking at oneself and always seeing the poor side of yourself, that is one of the reasons why people get into difficult problems in their life. I remember just teaching prisoners in jail that many of those prisoners, they never thought they were good enough. Obviously, they had been humiliated by putting in jails. They had many months or years ahead of them. And when you go into a prison, it's like you are branded for life. People ask you, where did those years go to? I even remember when my predecessor in Australia, Ajahn, when he sort of disrobed, he'd been a monk for about 20 years. And then when he left the robes, he tried to get a job in the United States. How can he? People kept asking him, what were you doing all those years? He said, I was a monk. Oh, yeah. So he asked me to write a letter, on our letterhead, to sign it with as many titles as possible, to say, I know this man, John Cinciosi, which is his lay name, and he's been a monk for the last 20 years. He hasn't been in prison, because that's what they suspected. 20 years of your life has disappeared as a monk. And so what have you been doing? So that's one of the reasons all of you monks here, don't disrobe. If you disrobe, no one will believe you. What have you been doing in Malaysia for the last 5 years? What was the crime? But in particular, just when a person feels distressed, they never feel good about themselves and they feel the worst about themselves. And I remember one of the prisoners, he was feeling very distressed, very down, very negative. It's very hard to prevent suicide. It's so easy to kill yourself. So I remember talking with this prisoner, and I gave him a piece of paper. He said, write down something good you've done today about yourself. And straight away he said, look, I can't. I've done nothing good. I'm a bad guy. That's why I'm in prison. That's why I'm here. I'm a bad character. He must have done something good today. Nothing. So I had to interrogate him, keep pushing. Come on, you have to put something down, something good you've done. And then one of the people overhearing us said, oh, he always looks after the prison cat. You do? What do you do to take to the prison cat? Oh, I gave it a saucer of milk. Great, write that down. That's nothing. Giving a cat a saucer of milk? I said, no, write that down. It took a while, I wanted that written down neatly. So he wrote it down neatly, because I know the longer time he spends on that, the longer time he looks at it. And he starts realizing something which is quite amazing. Once he wrote down that he fed the cat a saucer of milk, what else did you do? Nothing. You know, the cat doesn't just drink milk. Did you get it some fish or something? Oh yeah. Write it down. Those first two things took such a long time. But once his mind had actually turned to the positive things he'd done, then he listed all these amazing things he'd done that day for other prisoners, for the prison itself, just warning other prisoners if there was a danger somewhere. And when he wrote it all down, and then I told him, photocopy it. Many copies. Put some plastic covering on it so it doesn't sort of disappear so quickly. And keep it in your room. Keep it in a bag if you've got a bag. Keep looking at it many times a day. Okay, just feeding the cat, but that changes the way you look at life. Once you start looking at the positive side of life, all the beautiful things you've done, all the kind things you've done, my goodness, life changes. Look at the beautiful things which you have done. You put this on me every day, you never hurt me, you've done it very respectfully, and it means these talks can have wider and wider circulation. Thank you. Was that a good thing to do? Clap. That's one of the reasons why when somebody does some hard work, I'm old now, so I can't really help them as energetically as I used to. But sometimes if I see any of you just moving a lot of things, and I ask you, can I give you a hand? And you say, no, you just sit down, Ajahn Brahm. So then I just start clapping. I'm giving you a hand in English. But you want to encourage people to show they're appreciated. And each one of you in so many different ways have been of service to me when I'm here. And such a good service that you should remember it. What you've done, which is good. So the prisoners start to get into the habit of writing down all the good things they've done and keeping that list. They all are told all the bad things they've done. You don't need to remind them of that. They're people in jail. But when you remind them of the good things, that creates so much peace and harmony in their lives. So how many of you have got a husband or a wife still alive? Please, okay, put your hands down. Please, write on a piece of paper all the things you admire in your wife. Why do I sense resistance? All the things you admire in your husband. Okay, there's many things you don't admire. Many things which drive you crazy. Many things, why did I marry him? But leave that alone for a while. Remind yourself of the good parts of them. Then you put that on a piece of paper, laminate it, leave many copies, and then put it next to your bed in your briefcase when you go to work. And then it reminds you of another part of life, the really beautiful, good part of life. The problem is that whenever we see any faults in someone, it's the faults which take up all the space in our mind and in our memory. Those faults are why we call the biggest problem with meditation is having the fault-finding mind. When you have a fault-finding mind maybe in this room here, oh, it's too windy, oh, it's too cold, oh, it's too hot, it's too narrow. You know that sometimes I thought if I ever build another retreat center, and if I have a big sponsor, I'm going to make sure each one of you has your own individual aircon. Just comes down just one little pipe, just above you, and you can actually adjust it. Not only that, the meditation cushions. These meditations, they're so old-fashioned. Been sitting on those for decades. Can't we start having a high-tech meditation cushion? And this is a good opportunity for some of you who want to open up a new company and make millions of dollars. Honestly, because so many people are doing meditation and so many people get so sore. So what I thought of doing, having a cushion about 3 or 4 compartments. And then if, right now I feel my buttocks are a bit tight, so I can actually press a button and then the cushion massages the buttocks. And if it's too hot, press it, cools down. Too cold, it warms up. And then if you get sore because something is stretched, press another button, so an airbag sort of increases. And there's another airbag over here. And if there's like lots of flies or mosquitoes around, you press another button, and then the air blows all those mosquitoes, like the wind, blows all those mosquitoes away. It's amazing what you can actually do. They have that in cars. Why can't they have that in meditation cushions? In a car, you just get from one place to another. You get a really good meditation cushion, and you can actually get enlightened. Even something like sloth and torpor. How many people have asked me about sloth and torpor? How can you overcome sloth and torpor? Easy. You have another button, and you can choose either flat white, latte, cappuccino. And in the middle of the meditation, you put a cup there, and you get a cup of coffee. That will cure sloth and torpor straight away. So, all of these sort of little thoughts there were just sometimes how you can develop your wandering mind. That's a problem. There's no end to developing the perfect meditation cushion for you. But it takes so many thoughts and so much thinking and saying, oh, what's the point? And one of the reasons why it's not the point, because after a while you can sit here and it's not cool enough, it's not hot enough, this is sore, this is a mosquito here or something there. You will find that when you're peaceful, all of those problems disappear. That's kind of weird to me. The answer to comfort is learning how to do nothing, to overcome suffering, through being at peace. It's kind of weird, but it's true. What's he doing? Anything. It's also one of the ways to feel comfort is to trust in people. When you meditate, your eyes are closed. You've got all these people behind you. You don't know what they're up to. Do you know the person sitting behind you? Have you met them before? Sometimes that people have fear for no reason at all. And because they have fear for no reason at all, they cannot let go of that critical mind which always goes thinking and wondering. You know that somebody asked me today, they said they always have trouble with what they call the monkey mind. Have you heard of that before? You know, you can't say that anymore, monkey mind, because all the monkeys have got a legal action against you for demeaning the species of monkeys. Why are you critical of beings who are monkeys? Do you really know what their minds are like? They're judging people unfairly. But actually, there's a story, another story, here it comes. That monkey in Sri Lanka on Wesak Day was very hungry, and so he thought he knew, if you go to the temple on Wesak Day, the Buddhist temple, lots of people go there, someone is bound to actually drop something. And monkeys are very quick, they can rush in, grab the banana or the mango, and rush away again. That's how many of them get their food. I was told when I was visiting Sri Lanka what the monkeys do. When you go on arms round, we're staying in the center of one of the forest reserves. You go with your arms bow. The monkeys watch you, and they wait. And when you come back from arms round, you don't see the monkey. It just jumps on your back. It doesn't harm you. It's just a surprise of having a monkey suddenly jump on your back. And what do you do with the arms bowl? You drop it. And that's the monkey's breakfast. They're really clever, the monkeys. And so anyway, this monkey went to the temple on Wesak. And before anyone dropped any food, he heard this yellow-robed preacher, monk, start to give a talk about meditation. And this little monkey was very interested when that monk started talking about the monkey mind. Talking about me, thought the monkey. I never realized they paid much attention to us. And so the monkey really listened carefully. And then this monk started talking about monkey minds are really bad. They stop you finding peace. They destroy your meditation. You never get any jhanas or even near it with a monkey mind. And that really upset the monkey. Like, what's he talking about? He's demeaning monkeys. And he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm not going to allow this to happen. People talking bad words about monkeys. Now, I know lawyers. I'll be able to get a lawyer and make a complaint to the World Wildlife Fund. You shouldn't demean monkeys. That's what they do these days, you know. You demean anybody, say bad things about them, you can get sued. So, he was so upset, he swam back into the forest where his little troop of monkeys were. He said, "Hey guys, do you know what those monks are saying about us?" "What?" "We've all got monkey minds. We're restless. We can't sit still. We can't do anything still. We're just thinking too much." And at that, all the monkeys started jumping up and down. "He can't say that to us. We've got to do something. Let's complain. Let's write a letter. Let's go out to the World Wildlife Fund, get some lawyers, and sue them." And there was an old monkey there. And the old monkey said, "Look at yourselves. A small thing like this, and you're jumping up and down with such restless minds." That monk is correct. You have got monkey minds. you don't know what peace is like. And so all the monkeys, especially the one who first complained, said, yes, you're right. We have got monkey minds. What can we do about this? And the old monkey said, I've seen many monks give talks in the temple, and many of those monks say the way to overcome the monkey mind is meditation. So the monkey said, yeah, let's meditate. Good idea, we'll meditate. Yeah, wonderful, let's get meditating now. Come on, let's meditate. And when they stopped shouting and jumping about, because they were monkeys, they have got monkey minds, how do we meditate? And then the old monkey told them, well, first of all, you've got to get a cushion to sit on. Yeah, let's get a cushion, said the monkeys. And they all went into the forest. They found some grass, and they found some old leaves, and they put them together into a nice cushion. They sat on the cushion. Now what do we do? Now, said the head monkey, the old monkey, you put your, bend your left leg, put your right leg on top of your left leg, your right paw over your left paw, back straight, head down, close your eyes, and watch your breath. And that was the first time, even in the Buddhist country of Sri Lanka, that a monkey meditated. A historic event which went unnoticed. And after only 1 minute, one of the monkeys put their hand up and said, excuse me, I've just been thinking. I know I'm not supposed to be thinking, just watching my breath, but I've been thinking. You know, we agreed before the noontime, we're going to go into the banana plantation, steal a lot of bananas when the owners offer the temple for our lunch. Yeah, I've been thinking the same, said one of the other monkeys. Yeah, me too. So all those monkeys jumped up off their cushions only after 2 minutes, and they swung to the banana plantation. But we're not going to eat anything yet. We're going to wait till lunch. We are restrained, sort of. So they went to the banana plantation, stole a lot of bananas, brought them all back without eating them, and put them in a big pile of bananas in the middle of the clearing where they lived. They went back to their zafus, their cushions, and they sat right leg over the left leg, right paw over the left paw, back straight, head down, and started watching their breathing. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in. Excuse me, said another of the monkeys. I've just been thinking, and I can't get the thought out of my head. You know what it's like when people are really restless? And so I know that we don't want to eat the bananas yet, but before we eat those bananas, we've got to peel them first. So let's peel the bananas, not eat them. Once they're all peeled, I don't have to think that thought anymore. Good idea, said the other monkeys. So they all got off from their zafus and peeled all the bananas. They didn't eat anything yet. They kept their word. They were honest monkeys. And after they peeled all those bananas, they had them in a big heap in the middle of the forest. They went back to their zafus, sat down, right leg over the left leg, right paw over the left paw, back straight, heads down, closed their eyes, and started watching their breathing. Breathing in, breathing out. Excuse me, said another monkey. I've been thinking, you know, before we eat those bananas, it's not the time to eat them yet. Before we eat those bananas, we peeled them, we gathered them together. The one thing we forgot to do, we have to put those bananas in our mouth first before we eat them. So we have to, let's put the bananas in our mouth. We won't eat them yet. Then I don't have to think about that. a lot of times we want to sort of get away our restless minds by not having to think about these problems. Let's get it all settled, first of all. Yeah, good idea, they all said. So they all jumped off their cushions. They went to a big pile of bananas, put one banana in their mouth. Of course, some monkeys were greedy. They put 2 bananas in their mouth. And of course, there was 1 or 2 who put 3 or 4 in their mouth. I don't know how they fattened them in there, but they did that. And then they went back to their seats with the bananas in their mouths. Right leg over the left leg, right paw over the left paw. Back straight, heads down, close their eyes. And they started watching the bananas being chewed in their mouths. They ate them all. And that's called the restless mind. That is the monkey mind. So you haven't got monkey minds, I think. I haven't been in the hall where we've been having lunch. Have you seen the participants having monkey minds in the hall? Yes, you said. No, it's a lot of times we want to get things out of the way. Once they're out of the way, then we'll meditate. I always thought that was a great description of the real monkey mind. It's not thinking too much, because thinking is an easy thing to let go of. I went to a great university, got a good degree. Was I a good thinker? Actually, no. Because I learned that something like mathematics, even the mathematics, for theoretical physics, you don't use thought. You kind of learn how, logic works. One thing leads to the next thing, which leads to the next thing, which leads to the next thing. And you see where you end up. For me, math was like an exploration. Going on a journey, see what happens. Just like when I give talks. It's not something you learn, but something kind of you enjoy. And sometimes it's wonderful what you find out. But certainly, thinking didn't have a place there. Sometimes what the answers you came up with were kind of weird, but they were true. Those little things that you could prove. You can't travel faster than the speed of light, but you can reach, say, Alpha Centauri star system about 5.5 hours enough, I think. I forget, 5 light years away in 2 minutes. Isn't that illogical? 5 light years away, you can't travel faster than light, but you can get there in 2 minutes. It's because you can prove that as you travel, time distorts. I love things like that. That time is not the same for everybody. So if you want to live, and come back to Penang in 1,000 years' time, you're only 5 minutes older, that's possible. That's one of the nice things I like about logic. Logic is illogical. At least it seems that way. And to me it was fun doing things like that, showing how little I really knew. So what that did, it made me distrust logic, thinking. All the great discoveries, especially in science, were kind of illogical. That's why I remember Albert Einstein. Not only did he talk in a Bronx accent, that story I said the other day, but also, he had his great arguments with quantum physicists. And he said, that can't be true. But it is. Even that confused even Albert Einstein. This is what I love about thinking. One thing I can say about it is confusing. What do you get out of it? what you get out of being a great thinker is a great headache. So I don't think much. Instead you see, you hear, and you smell, taste, touch, and you know. All the thinking is a hindrance, much more so than you know. So also, I make use of thinking, ideas, labels, to be able, to create a happier world for yourself and for others. That's one of the reasons why, when you learn how to see the best side of yourself, the best side of your partner, the best side of the people you work with, then of course you are happier. Isn't that worth it? If you see some problems with the Penang Buddhist Association, how does it feel? If you see the problems, that's all you see, and you get more and more and more critical, more and more tired, and the problem's always there, but there are more good things than problems. That's one of the reasons why, if I'd have found this out years and years and years and years ago, I'm glad I didn't. It would have been very easy to fall in love with somebody. Well, I was too critical when I was young. I already told you that. You remember I told you the scariest moment in my life? You've heard that one before. The scariest moment in my life, and I'm being honest with you, was when I was a student at university, just almost finished. And then one of my friends was getting married. And at his marriage ceremony, that my friends, also invited obviously, were standing around young men in suits, with good degrees. And I didn't realize that was very attractive for members of the opposite gender. So we started talking about who's going to be next to get married. And our first person was this fellow, my friend called Jeff. He eventually became the British consul in Macau for many years. He was a very smart fellow, spoke perfect Mandarin. And anyhow, first of all, someone said, he'll be the next. And then we looked at him. Nah, no one would marry him. And the next person they pointed at was this guy called Peter. That was my lay name before I became a monk. He'll be next. And they looked at me and said, no one will marry him. And at that moment, there was a woman standing next to me. She whispered in my ear, I would. Oh. I was so scared. I was terrified. That really shocked me. Fortunately, I escaped and became a monk instead. I don't know, because maybe I'd seen too many movies at that time, being a lay person who watched movies. Can I really escape? I managed it. I became a monk. That was a close call. No, because sometimes, what scares you? What scares you is when you lose control, when you lose your freedom, when you lose your ability to make choices and go this way rather than that way. That's what I was scared of. So in my life, being a monk, there's so many rules which I have to complete. The Vinaya, the monks' rules, and the rules for nuns, they're so easy to keep. The reason is because I don't want to break them. It takes away your freedom, gives you more suffering. It's lovely being a monk. One of the things which I can't have is money. Oh, that's so free. When somebody asks me for a donation, sorry, I've got no cash on me. And they ask me, I've got to pay taxes. I don't even earn any income. You know my income, you know all these books which I write? Some of those have been bestsellers. I said, don't you get any money from those? No. I give all that money is dedicated to Buddhist society here or Buddhist society there. I don't make anything. I like that. You give it out for free. And I serve you for free. Okay, yeah, sometimes we do have collections for some of the projects which I get roped into. And so that's where it goes. I get nothing. And that's why when you come and see where I live and all the possessions I have, nothing. I love that. You're totally free. I trust you. Every time I arrive in Penang airport, I've got no money. I've arranged no taxis. But I know, I trust, Chow Po will be there. If he wasn't, I'd be stuck. I'd have to start walking. Honestly. Because I've got no money. I've got no credit card either. It's nice not having a credit card. I love that. So anyway, all of these things which you don't have make you a bit abnormal. I kind of like being different. Don't you? But anyhow, what that teaches me is that when you trust others, and I trust each one of you, as you know, even those of you I haven't met many times, and you trust me as well. That's why I can give you some advice on meditation. And you know it's going to work for you. I've been doing this for years. I know what works. And that's why that trust means you can close your eyes, follow what I advise, and have a wonderful time. So this is where that trust replaces things like the control of force and the control of money and the control of, I don't know what else you can control with. But you learn just know how people work. They understand them. And it's amazing that sometimes, even like these suicides, I started off by, because somebody else mentioned it. Some of these suicides, one of the best ways of teaching people so they don't commit suicide and they don't get divorced and they keep their friendships. It's the old two bad bricks in the wall simile. I've been teaching that for years. The two bad bricks in the wall simile was when I learned how to lay a wall, be a bricklayer. I'd never done anything like that before. I was doing sums all the time at school and at university, being a mathematician. But what I did do, I made sure I was really careful, laid every brick perfectly. When I finished my first wall, of course you all know what happened. I looked back and I saw two bricks were out of line. They were crooked. To this day, I don't know how I missed those bricks. All the other bricks, all nice and level. They spoiled the whole wall. And so what did I do? I was embarrassed about imperfection. If that was my mistake, I didn't want anybody to see it. So I tried to take those bricks out, scrape away the cement mortar. It was way too hard. The next thing which I suggested, can I please get some dynamite, blow up that wall, start again. You know, I was very good with explosions. You know, I shouldn't say this over in public talk in Malaysia. Okay, well, I've already started. When I was a young boy, 11 years of age, together with my best friend, Christopher Nightingale, his name was, I still remember that. He had a brother who was a chemist. So we got some chemicals. All I did was supply the tin can. We made a bomb. And we set it off in the park. 11-year-old boys being naughty. And it went bang! I was so excited. It didn't harm anybody or hurt anybody. No one was in that park that time of day. Bang! I thought that was great. Until the park keeper caught us. Then we were in trouble. I learned my lesson. But nevertheless, we were kind of smart. Too smart for our own good. So anyway, to get something to blow up that wall and start again, so I could relay it. I didn't mind doing the extra work. I just was embarrassed about having made a mistake. I was afraid what other people think of me. And I was also afraid that if the people visiting our monastery showed what had happened to all that money they had raised to build this wall, that they wouldn't give any more. We'd wasted their money. So I literally did have nightmares about that crooked wall. And one day, after about 3 months, this gentleman wanted to have a tour around our new monastery. And I showed them, and they saw that wall. And that's when they said, "That is a beautiful brick wall." I thought they were joking. They say, "Are you left the spectacles in your car? Are you visually impaired? Can't you see those 2 crooked bricks?" And what they said changed my life. They said, "Yes, I can see the 2 crooked bricks, but I can also see the 998 beautiful bricks." And that hit me like a brick. That's a bad joke, I'm sorry. But nevertheless, I was surprised. How come I could only see my faults? How come I could only dream about my faults, which made nightmares? Why could I not see the good bricks which I laid? And it's because in our education systems in Malaysia, Australia, England, or wherever, we're always pointed out the mistakes which we make. And when we see the red line through the mistake, one mistake, that's all we made, but we get no marks for it in the exams. That is why we become fault finders. It's easy to see people's faults. It's easy to see your own faults. It's easy to see your husband, your wife's faults. Why is it hard to see their good qualities? And when you learn how to see the good qualities, you find for every 2 crooked bricks, there's always 998 beautiful bricks in them. Tell them. If you tell them, it changes your whole relationship. My husband, my wife respects me. And when people don't get that respect, that's when the suicides happen, the divorces. This is one of the reasons why that when I tell these stories, one of the best results of those stories years ago was when that story of the 2 bad bricks, it's in the book Opening the Door of Your Heart, was sent over to Bangkok. And in Bangkok, it went to the Australian Embassy in Bangkok. I have a disciple there. And as a result of that, I got a letter in the mail, when they did letters, from the Australian Embassy in Bangkok with an airline ticket for me. And the airline ticket was whatever date you want. Please come to Bangkok, visit us. We've arranged to talk for you whenever you want. Because that little story of the 2 bad bricks that healed 2 couples who had been divorced. They came back together again, reconciled, and started their relationship again. They'd already been divorced, and they forgave each other. Yeah, 2 bad bricks in the wall, husband, wife, but there's so many beautiful bricks which I know about you. Let's come back together. And the other two were trial separation. Can you imagine what that meant for them? They still love their partner, but they've been lost their trust because of two stupid mistakes. Is that worth destroying a life together for two stupid mistakes? If they're going to make more mistakes, fair enough. It's just one mistake in your life, or two, and 1,000 beautiful times together. Is that really worth it? They came together again. So that was one of the reasons why they sent me an airline ticket, all free of charge. So I love it when you can give some advice which actually helps, serves, and makes people look at life in a totally different way instead of being so critical, to be more understanding. Not just understanding, is why we have that unconditional part of love. Yeah, people aren't perfect. You know, once there was this guy who lived in Penang, and he was very successful in business and became, very wealthy. And he was still young, so he thought, I'm wealthy enough, I'm fit, I'm good at sports, I'm really healthy and wealthy. I want to marry the most beautiful girl in the world. So he looked around Penang and he found this really beautiful person. And this girl was just like a supermodel. So he went out with her a couple of times. And then he found that it's okay going out with her, but she couldn't cook. What's the point of having a wife who can't cook for you, he thought. So he gave up on her and went down to KL. And over in KL found another woman who was even more beautiful than the one in Penang. And she was such a good cook. She had a restaurant which had a Michelin star. And she thought, wow. So he went out with her a couple of times. And then he found out he couldn't marry her either. She was a great cook, but she was stupid. So you know where he went next? Perth. And in Perth, he met the most beautiful girl in the world. I mean, she was really stunning. And she had 5 restaurants. She was running so easily. And she was so intelligent. She had a PhD from Cambridge, a PhD from Oxford, a PhD from Stanford. Oh, she was so amazingly wise. He went out with her, and she was just the woman he wanted. Wise, intelligent, successful, beautiful. He proposed to her. She turned him down. The reason why, she said, she was looking for the perfect guy. He was looking for the perfect girl. He was looking for the perfect guy, never found him. Not in that guy. So that's one of the reasons you will never find the perfect girl. You'll never find the perfect guy. It's good enough. I do marriage counseling for people. And often, when the people just want marriage counseling, I say, what's wrong with you two? And then husband says all the things which are wrong about his wife. The wife says all the things which are wrong about her husband. When I hear it, I said, look, I'm being honest with you. You're a perfect match. So anyway, I'm supposed to get how to be free from suffering. But it's that criticality of ours which is not fair. And so if we are really fair, we can be happy even with a bit of suffering. We can be free of it. What do you expect in life? When you expect something which life can't give you, that's called suffering. It's impossible to live forever. Who wants to live forever? I know some of you want me to live forever over there. It can't be done. I don't want to either. There comes a time when your body gets old. There comes a time when your body gets sick. There comes a time when your body gets ugly. That time hasn't happened yet for me because you still take so many photographs. So there comes a time when you have to let go. You have to. Fortunately, in monasticism, we learn about letting go from such an early time. Ajahn passed away. My father passed away. My mother passed away. So often we have people we love and care about pass away. Is there anything wrong with that? Sometimes we think, oh, what a waste of time that is. How bad that is somebody's passed away. Don't worry. I've written so many books. There are so many recorded videos and so many recorded YouTube talks. My goodness! Would I disappear if I passed away? Sometimes, if a person passes away, they don't disappear. It's like they're still there in another form. I'm not talking about the Buddha still existing. The most important part of the Buddha was his teachings, an example. They're still there. And that's what we worship. Not the person, but the message. And that's always what we worship. Their teacher disappears. My Ajahn Chah. He was such a funny monk, but also a very wise monk. And had some wonderful times together. Probably the most important example of Ajahn Chah's teachings was how he could put the Dhamma in such a beautiful way, in a unique way. There was a time when he started getting very old and very sick. And that was a time when, because monks like me, we started learning more about the Vinaya, the monks' rules, and the nuns' rules. We found something I never expected to find. That in the time of the Buddha in India, they had saunas. I always thought that saunas came from Sweden. So the Indians got there before you, many thousands of years. And so they had saunas in Buddhist monasteries. And so we thought, why don't we build a sauna in Wat Barnana Chat for Ajahn Chah? There was a couple of reasons for that. One is because many of the monks wanted a sauna. And number two, that we cared for Ajahn Chah, we wanted him to get healthy. But number three, if he ever came for a sauna, he would give us a Dhamma talk. And that was the main reason. So we built the sauna for Ajahn Chah. He would come every week. And one day, when he came, he gave a Dhamma talk. And this particular talk was one of his best. It really was a fantastic talk. And when you hear a fantastic talk from an Arahat like an Ajahn Chah, oh my goodness, you cry. It's beautiful. And that, having been so inspired by one of Ajahn Chah's best talks. There were lots of other monks who could help him with his sauna. So I went round the back of the hall. On Conk, I didn't mind where I meditated. I just sat down, it was quiet there, and got into a deep meditation. When you go into a deep meditation, a lot of times it's because you've been inspired. If you hear a beautiful talk and it really gets to you, just cross your legs somewhere, sit on a chair and just, you can't think. You just get inspired with stillness. So I got into deep meditation. When I came out, I didn't know how long it was until I looked at the clock in the hall. It was 2 hours. And after the 2-hour meditation, I thought, maybe I can do something for Ajahn Chah. So I went towards the sauna. And as I was walking towards the sauna, I realized I was too late. Ajahn Chah was coming in the opposite direction with a Thai man who was his driver to go back to Wat Pah Pong, which was about 6 kilometers from Wat Nanachat. And as he was coming, I would pass him on the path. So as we came closer, I moved to the edge of the path to let him get by me. But he stopped. Have I told you this story before yet? Here? In this retreat? Not everybody. Okay, well here it comes again. That's where I went to the side and he looked at me. And I repeat again, I must have said this last time, he read my mind. And it wasn't just, I'm saying that because what I was seeking, he could tell me. I just come out of a deep meditation, you could feel him inside my mind. Strange thing to say. What did it feel like? I said, I don't know, but I knew he was having a look inside. And it was one of the few times I was very happy he was having a look around my mind. For once, my mind was nice and clean and pure. I was quite proud of it. It's like when, you have a nice new building in the temple and you want people to come and have a look at it. This is a nice temple here. You've upgraded it quite a lot. Well done. And so when somebody comes and looks inside your temple and you're proud of it, you feel good. You go, come and have a look here, come and have a look there. So I was very happy he was having a look around my mind. And when he came out, he looked at me. And of course I was not an Ajahn yet. He called me by the real name, Brahmavamso. Brahmavamso! He barked. Why? He said it like that to get my attention. Asked me the question, why? You sure you heard this last time? Oh. Why? And I realized that it was a powerful question. Ajahn Chah so I just had a really good samadhi experience, meditation experience. He was trying to add that last ingredient, some wisdom, so I could get fully enlightened. He was trying to enlighten me. Why? You know what I said? I don't know. I was still a young monk, needed more time to be able to understand these things. You asked the question, why? I said, I don't know. And one of the wonderful things, which I always remember with an Ajahn Chah, whenever you gave a stupid answer, he never criticized you. He just laughed. He laughed so much at my answers that all the Western monks who were there caused him so much laughter. I think that's why he had so many Western monks in his monasteries. They caused him so much humor. But then, the kindness of that great monk, Ajahn Chah, he stopped laughing and looked at me again. And that's when he said to me, Brahmavamso, a bit softer this time, I will tell you the answer. If someone ever asks you again the same question, why? The correct answer is, I thought you said you'd heard this answer before. So what's the answer? Excellent, that's in time. My me arai. There's nothing. There's nothing. He said that with such kindness. And he looked at me again and said, do you understand? And I said, yes. And he said, no, you don't. I felt such a fool, but I felt so thankful. What's the answer? Why? There's nothing. Emptiness. Anatta. Nothing there. How can you see it like that? When you get into deep meditation, you see that all of the things we take to be solid are not solid at all. That's why I liked my science. Sometimes you looked in a microscope and you thought even the floor was solid. You all know it's just a bunch of molecules. The molecules are made of atoms. The atoms are made of subatomic particles. Even the subatomic particles, they're just so fleeting. There's hardly anything there. Even what we're sitting on is so empty, so nothing. It's closer to nothing than anything else. So Ajahn Chah was teaching, my Mira, there's nothing there. What about your body? Nothing really there. What about your mind? Nothing really there. If you can see that, my Mira, then you'll be free from all suffering. There's no one to experience the suffering anymore. As I said earlier in my talks, gone, baby, gone. That's how it happens. So that was actually my experiences with Ajahn Chah. And just how he would teach you things, because you saw him, respected him enough, you took those things seriously. And when he said, if anyone asks you that again, the answer is nothing. Manmurai. And how beautiful, accurately that is. Sometimes it challenges you. It's not what you expect. But nevertheless, please remember that. There's nothing. Why can you worry about anything? Why can you suffer about anything? There's nothing. Okay, so that's the talk. Now the questions. Is that okay? Okay. Jalpa, when do we finish to give time for those announcements? After the questions, okay. First question here. Oh, it's a long question, I'll summarize it. Why? We are surrounded by all these beautiful black and white portraits, photos. They are placed here by these deceased families. Oh great, we need some more questions. For one reason, I think, for them to be in this hall to listen to Dhamma talks. Tonight, some could be around, some don't. That's wonderful to think like that, because that's a good chance. Some people, when there's a good talk on, come and listen. I like it when people can actually sense, those echoes from the past. People who come to listen to the Dhamma and to protect the Dhamma. Just like when the Buddha was fully enlightened. Siddhartha Gautama under the Bodhi tree. one of the people who came to see the Buddha under the Bodhi tree was Gatikara. Gatikara was his best friend in a previous life. Gatikara became an anagami. His best friend Jotipara became a disciple of Kassapa the Buddha and eventually reborn as Siddhartha Gautama. And this is our Buddha. And at that time, his best friend from a previous life just came to say, well done. Congratulate. Isn't that what you would do if your best friend did something like that? And it's also, that who was one of the other devas who came to congratulate the Buddha? His name was Sahampati. I don't know why, but they call him in the suttas Brahma Sahampati. But even Sahampati too was a friend of Jotipara under Kassapa the Buddha. And because again they were friends, Sahampati, who was an anagami, non-returner, also wanted to ask the Buddha, there are plenty of people in this world with little dust in their eyes. Please teach, for the happiness and well-being. Some will understand. And that was not some god. That was a non-returner who knew Siddhartha Gautama in his previous life when he was, and also another monk under Kassapa the Buddha. To me, I like those stories that make it much more understandable and human. And of course, many of these people here, if they haven't been reborn yet, if they're heavenly beings somewhere, many of them may come down here to listen. Imagine what they would feel like when you see so many people here listening to a Dhamma talk and enjoying it. They'll be inspired that their donations, their hard work was well used and is being used even today to teach the Dhamma. Wow. Okay, the question, when they were alive, some didn't bother to listen to any Dhamma talks. Tonight, do they listen to the Angmo Dhamma talk? How to get the deceased to attend a Dhamma talk? It's hard, you can't force beings like that. But sometimes, if they're lucky enough, if one or two were really good friends in their previous life, they're still good friends in the current existence as heavenly beings, they tell each other and come and listen. How does self-awareness referred to in modern psychology compare to the Buddhist concept of the self and self-awareness? Oh my goodness. That's question 2, and then there's question 3. That idea of self-awareness is just a word. It means you're aware of what's going on inside of you. And it's like pointing inside rather than pointing outside. It's just a word which has a meaning. Nothing to do with the sense of self. What is the correct or preferred funeral rites for the remains of deceased, either burial or cremation? Would either rite make a difference to the deceased soul self in his or her rebirth and afterlife journey, whichever rite is performed for him or her, as long as the most important part of the service to make sure they are dead? Honestly, sometimes people get it wrong. I did tell the story of those 2 ladies who had a very close name over in the Punjab. No? Okay. True story. It was told to me by Ajahn over in my monastery. He used to be Sikh, the Sikh tradition before, and now he's a Buddhist monk. And he said this happened to him. He saw it when he was a young man. There was one lady died in the morning time, and her name was Mrs. Kaur. But then all of the ladies over in that part of the world, in the Punjab, are called Kaur. The Kaur we have over there is actually a different spelling. All the ladies are called Kaur, all the men are called Singh. And so anyway, Mrs. Kaur passed away. Good doctors, very well developed part of India. And so as soon as she died, they had to arrange a funeral service. And when they were arranging a funeral service, they could get the body cremated in the evening. And so they had everybody ready, but then in the late afternoon, she became alive again. And of course, that really shocked everybody, including the doctors, because they had tested her and she was dead. But anyway, she came alive. And then she told the story of what had happened after she was pronounced dead. She said that these two spirits came up to her and took hold of her and dragged her away to see this big spirit. And this big spirit, as soon as the big spirit saw her and saw the other spirits holding her to bring them to the big spirit, he got very angry and annoyed at the smaller spirits. You've got the wrong Mrs. Kaur. You made a mistake. And of course that must happen very often because some people have got such similar names. You could make that mistake. So they had to take her back. And that's when she became alive. She woke up. And she was fine. But then a few minutes later, another Mrs. Kaur passed away. This time they got the right one. And so I warn you, over in Bodhinyana Monastery, we have two monks, Ajahn Brahm and Ajahn Brahmali. Their names are close enough. Be careful. If they judge me to have passed away, don't burn me yet. You may have got the wrong one. Oh, sorry. I don't know where question one was gone. Anyway. Good day, Ajahn Brahm. Can you please explain how transfer of merits work in quantum physics? I did this question yesterday. It's amazing even questions get reincarnated. Good day, Ajahn. What happens after one emerges out of the immaterial cessation? Attainment of Sotapanna. Thank you, Ajahn. I know that I've debated with many senior monks about this, but I'm pretty sure if you know from the first jhana, if you go deeper, you go from the first into the second into the third into the fourth. The fourth is like perfect peace, where equanimity and mindfulness reach its peak. Supreme mindfulness and equanimity. What will happen next? You stay there long enough, because it's so still, something has to disappear. The thing which disappears next is the perception of space. This is where they say ananta. Ananta means with no limits or with no boundaries, immeasurable. Sometimes we call it infinity of space. This is where the idea of space kind of vanishes. And the next is the infinity of consciousness. The second, we go from one into the other, consciousness starts to disappear. If consciousness starts to disappear, how can you know? You've got to be consciousness to be aware. So consciousness is starting to disappear. And from there, what you're aware of next is nothing. The immaterial attainment of nothingness. And the one after that, or rather not after, sorry, I should say inside of that, is neither perception nor non-perception. You can't really say you're aware of anything or perceiving anything. But then you look at it one angle, you know that perception has stopped. You look at it from the other angle, there's still perception there. And then the next stage is cessation. Stops. At that point, even awareness has stopped. What happens next is awareness comes back. You're in the stage of neither perception nor non-perception. You go in the reverse order back. And then when you come out of that, you've seen even knowing stop for a long time. Then what happens afterwards? It can only be a non-returner. Not just a stream winner, but a non-returner or fully enlightened. There are only two possibilities. If you don't believe me, try it. Is conventional medical treatment necessary if one is able to overcome pain and related symptoms using only wisdom power? Okay. Letting go, meditation, without traditional medical treatment. The root cause of an illness which may require further treatment or even surgery may not be treated, to the detriment of the individual. What are your views on this? I would never have a view on somebody else's treatment. I only make sure my own treatment is done in a way which I'm at ease with. And usually, please excuse me, it's with no medical treatment. It's a long time since I've had medical treatment. At the moment, skills in meditation are good enough. They do the job. If I was shot by a bullet, then of course, actually, I wouldn't have a choice. You would go and take me to the hospital and get me dealt with. But if it's my choice, don't need treatment. If he's going to die, die. Let's do it. Would you let me? Oh, come on. What's wrong with dying? Couldn't do it one day. No? Okay. A lot of times, now what are those medical difficulties you need treatment for? A lot of times it's a monk. A monk, you just think, why? Sometimes when you go to a hospital, sometimes you get more things found and you spend more time there. And I kind of, know the people like an Ajahn, who should have died in the hospital, but he escaped from the hospital, went back to his monastery and lived another 25 years with no illness at all. I know there's something more than the treatment in hospitals. That's one of the reasons why, it was my choice. I go into my cave, lock the doors, and disappear there. I told the monks that in Bodhinyana Monastery. So my cave will be my final resting place. You can't open the doors. And it's already like a mausoleum, already there. It's very convenient. And you can't open it from the outside. It's all worked out. So if I don't come here the next time to Penang, it's still because I'm dead in my cave. Is that okay? No, come on. It's only when other people treat you. What happened with Ajahn Chah? You've got time? What happened with Ajahn Chah? I wanted to tell this story. Ajahn Chah sort of had a sickness, had a stroke. They tried to give him an operation, and when he came out of that, he had a bigger stroke. One of the results of that, one of my vows, my determinations, was I would never ask to travel anywhere. I would only ask, I wouldn't ask, I let Ajahn Chah send me wherever he wanted. And just before he had his stroke, he sent me to Australia. So there I went to Australia, and so shortly, maybe a month after he had his stroke, a month after I arrived in Australia, he had a stroke, and he couldn't speak anymore. That's how I got stuck in Australia. And that's pretty accurate. But then, I was always asking, why did Ajahn Chah live for, I don't know how many more, 9 years or something? And the reason was that the monks had a big meeting. What should we do next? And they all decided, let nature take its course. We don't want to make Ajahn Chah struggle. So they decided just to let him die. And that's when the king of Thailand heard about that and intervened. And so he said, no, you've got to keep Ajahn Chah alive so we all can make merit with him. So the king of Thailand paid for all the medical treatment. And they had a medic on duty on 8-hour shifts continually. And also a couple of monks would volunteer to also help. So there was always someone with him. And that was helpful because at one time, one of the monks on duty told me that Ajahn Chah stopped breathing. When someone stops breathing, usually the medic thinks you're going to die. You need oxygen to live. There's no oxygen going into his body. So the medic tried to do something to get him breathing again. The other monk said, stop. He does this regularly, stop breathing. He's just going into a jhana. Honestly. Because that's what happens when you go into deep meditation. You stop breathing, you can't find any heartbeat, and the body stays warm, remember. And so they said, leave him alone. But on this occasion, the medic got scared. So I know that Ajahn Chah is going to die one day. I do not want Ajahn Chah to die on my shift. So they had an argument with the monks. And the monk said, look at the color of his skin. It's warm and it's still red. If he's not breathing, getting enough oxygen, it'll go white or even blue. So the medic agreed on that. And so what the medic did, every few minutes, he'd take a sample of the blood, in Ajahn Chah's vein, and test it to make sure it was oxygenated. And the strange thing which he found, that throughout the time, there was no discernible breath going in or out of Ajahn Chah's body. The blood was always well oxygenated. How that air was going in, I don't know. He was still the heart was still pumping, or rather the blood was going around, but there's no oxygen going into the lungs. Sometimes people say it's just the skin absorbs enough oxygen. Doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, the main point was always enough oxygen in the blood. Ajahn, I pursued Dhamma. After I pursued Dhamma, I practiced a more simple lifestyle. I am a single and I find intimate relationships too troublesome. Also find friends are not in the same frequency and lack interest to socialize. But I feel lonely sometimes, for I haven't learned to enjoy solitude. Of course, as a monk, I can understand that. I already mentioned to you that I had girlfriends, one at a time, sexually active, and the last girlfriend I had, it was like I lost interest in her. And I couldn't understand why at the time. And later on, I realized it's because during that relationship, I'd had a lovely meditation retreat up at Cambridge. I've mentioned it a few times to you already. And during that meditation retreat, because you started to experience the joys of meditation, of deep meditation, I now know that that kind of ruined the relationship. I know that just not interested anymore. It's a weird thing to say, but after all these years, as a monk, please, you monks over there, that some monks do silly things, and sometimes they get lost in lust. Can I make a confession to you? I made this confession on one Friday evening in Nolamara Center to about 300 or 400 people, because there's many Thai monasteries with monks who are misbehaving. So I put my head down and said, I think it's better to be honest with you all. I'm an honest monk. And I said, I spent some of the most wonderful, wonderful hours of my life in the loving arms of another man's wife. Honest. Why are you smiling? Because you know what I'm going to say. Loving arms of another man's wife. We kissed, we hugged. It was my mum. It was my dad's wife. I was still a lay person. I remember saying that because sometimes people judge without the total information and you get in trouble. Not you've done anything wrong. Nothing wrong growing up, kissing and hugging my mother. She was another man's wife, my dad. But I said that because I wanted people, whenever you hear anything like that, any rumors, check it out first of all. I have been a good monk all these years, but I remember once and many times, for example, when Ajahn Jakaro, he fell in love and disrobed. He should have been a bit more careful. But nevertheless, after he disrobed, I knew that I was next in line to be abbot in Bodhinyana Monastery. And I never wanted to disappoint anybody. And I knew how much his disrobal had disappointed all of our supporters. Many even came up to me and said, okay, when are you going to disrobe? They'd lost trust in the senior monks. And so I went back into my kuti at that time. I didn't have a cave yet. And for about 2 or 3 days, I kept asking myself, Ajahn Brahm, honestly, is there any chance at all, that you're going to disrobe? I asked that question. And it was an easy question to answer. The answer was no. I loved being a monk. And you've had experiences in meditation and insights. It was the only thing which I loved. So I could actually say, look, I'm never going to disrobe. And so far, after 70 Oh no, after 51 years as a monk, I'm keeping that word. I'm not doing that out of force. Basically, there's nothing more I love to do. So I'm going to be in robes until I die. Actually, I do disrobe sometimes when I go into the shower. But no, I'm a monk. I'm really a monk to the core. No. Anyway, but I also enjoy solitude. Solitude is beautiful. There's time in solitude. This evening, when I go back to Chao Po's house, I go into the room, lock the door, and I stay in there all night. I have a wonderful time. But be careful, Chao Po, because when I went on my retreat for 6 months, I did hear the other monks told me there was almost like a fist fight of who's going to go into the retreat. I spent 6 months in solitude to carry on their practice. And the monk who won that competition, he was going to move in after me. And he told me the first night that my kuti, where I spent 6 months in solitude, was free, he opened the door and he couldn't get inside. He said the energy was too strong for him. That's what he told me. Solitude is gorgeous. So be careful when you go into that room. I'm being serious. So that time, I never feel lonely. 2 more questions? Yes. That's good. During the dusk time, I always feel anxious and depressed. Then I'm fine again when the dark night arrives. How to overcome? I don't know, it must have been something which happened to you a long time ago, maybe previous life, at dusk time. As for me, I like dusk. I like night. I like dawn. I like during the day. That's my favorite time. Now, but I see nothing, especially when you're at a place like Penang. There's so many kind, good people here. What are you going to be afraid about? And depressed? This is a pretty safe island. You can find some work, there are temples, there's people who look after you. It's a pretty nice place to live, honestly. So, and that's my recommendation. So because of that, feel happy, you're in a good place, and you've got a good monk over there. Can I see? My goodness, you're so lucky to have him here, and all these other monks as well, and nuns. So enjoy Penang. Maybe it doesn't give exactly what you want, but it's close enough. You know also what happens in Penang? You get these Ang Mo monks coming. It's a nice place to stay. Last question. Here it is. Why didn't you recommend other methods, e.g. 4 elements, casino, etc.? They can help us reach jhana 2, right? If they really could and you needed them, I would have recommended them. Answer. Great. So that's it, folks. That's all for now. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And my gratitude to you. Been a wonderful audience. And of course, you see the same faces every day, every evening. And so I don't look at you, honestly, these days as disciples. You're family. I don't know why that's the case. I'm an Ang Mo. But it's get to know you and care for you. Okay, Chapo.